It's not unusual to be loved by anyone. Ba-da-da-da-da-da. It's not unusual to be held by anyone. Ba-da-da. Welcome to Boom Shot, the show where we take a look at film, photography, and the business behind the scenes. Last week we talked about script writing software that could help make your scripts industry standard. This week we're going to talk a little bit more about the content that actually goes into your story. Now, most of my story ideas start with a character, someone that I think would be interesting. Then I try to build a history around them, and then I try to build a story that will challenge them to their core. Your characters are one of the most important parts of your script. In order for anything interesting to happen, your characters have to act and react to the world around them. And the more interesting they are, the more interesting your film will be, because they'll be able to act and react in ways that less interesting people wouldn't. So, how do you write a better character? Now, as with anything, the only way to get better at something is to do it over and over and over and over again. But the thing about doing things over and over again is that you're going to build habits. So, if you follow the advice we lay out in this video, you're going to build good habits, and this will put you leaps and bounds ahead of the guys who just write things willy-nilly, or helter-skelter, or piddle-paddle. Every person in the world has a point of view on everything, even stuff that they know nothing about. And if you don't believe me, just get on Twitter for 5 minutes. Finding your character's point of view is imperative. How they think about the input that they're getting is going to shape their choices, their personalities, and impact your scripts in ways that you can't even think about yet. Now, things get really interesting when you have two characters with opposing points of view. This is what's going to cause the conflict in your script, and conflict is the thing that makes it interesting to watch in the first place. For instance, you may have a ring of power at the center of a conflict in your script, but what really causes the battle is one character's belief that he should rule with an iron fist versus another character's belief that freedom is the right of everyone in Middle-earth. I know that's hitting a little bit on the nose, but Lord of the Rings is awesome, and if you haven't seen it, you should. This stuff goes for your antagonists too. Remember, the most compelling villains in all of movie history all believe that they're doing the right thing. They have a strong point of view that they firmly believe in, and that's going to be one of the most important parts of your story, is a conflict that both sides are actually really fighting for. If we're going to follow along with someone through an entire movie, it's important that we like them from the very beginning. Now, this can be done in several ways. You could just show that they're being kind to the less fortunate, or you could write some witty dialogue that allows them to be charming, or you can just show that they put their family before everything else in their life. If your character is flat or has no redeeming qualities that the audience can relate to, you're going to find yourself in the worst situation imaginable. Your audience won't care. So, give your protagonist some pros, some things that make us want to see them win. Now, on the other hand, you do have to be careful. Characters who can do no wrong are not only boring, they can be annoying. In some cases, you'll actually find that your audience will root for these people to lose. Now, maybe that's because we're dealing with our own inadequacies, but regardless of the reason, you need to make sure that your character has some flaws. What's even better than having a character who isn't perfect is having a flaw that your character has to overcome in order to complete their goals in the story. This gives you one of the most important pieces to the puzzle. A good story will challenge your character, and they'll be forced to change throughout the narrative. Even in action movies, the main conflict isn't the physical one, it's mental. This change in personality and point of view is called a character arc. Take a look at Lord of the Rings, for instance. Frodo is challenged physically, emotionally, and in ways that he can't even understand. He leaves the Shire a naive young hobbit, but he returns changed, weary. His body is affected by the journey, yes, but what carries the biggest scars is his heart. So much so that after the battle is over, he leaves Middle-earth behind completely. You can also take a look at any number of romantic comedies. A character who doesn't believe in love meets someone, and then they have to change the way they're looking at everything around them. By the end, they've gone from being self-preserving to being selfless, and learning that they're able to connect with someone else. Or you can go the other way completely. Maybe they find out that love is actually way worse than they ever imagined, and they end up more embittered and angry than before. And then they go live in a cave in the mountains and grow a very long beard. Either way, it's important that your characters change by the end of the story. If they haven't changed, then what was the point of telling their story at all? If you really want to understand someone whom you've just met, what do? You ask questions about the things that happened to them before you ever met them. It's the same way with your characters. Create a backstory for them. Ask yourself questions about who they are and what happened to them before we meet them in the script. Ask yourself things like this. Did they grow up with both parents? Did they have money as a kid, or were they forced to live on the street for a short time? Did they have an accent? What was their first car? What do they drive now? Do they like cheese? What's their favorite type of music to listen to? All of these questions are things that allow you to build a more complete picture of who they are as a character. And the more complete picture you have, the easier it is to write good dialogue for these people. Every character needs a solid foundation, and a foundation is made up of backstory. Now, like I said earlier, I normally start with the character before I have a complete story. I've listened to a lot of authors on podcasts and interviews and other mediums saying that they're doing things the same way, so I'm pretty sure that this is the right way to do it. If you don't want to stifle your character, you're going to have to let them do some of the writing for you in your script. And what I mean by that is that you have to let their personality traits, their choices, and the way that they would react to the situations they're in guide your story in a more natural way. If you try to force these characters into the situations that you've already planned out in your head, you're going to end up handcuffing their personality to the radiator in the basement where no one will ever find it. Instead, using what you know about your character's backstory and their point of view, let that show you how they would react in the situation they're in, and see where that leads you. It may just take you to places that are much more interesting than the ideas you had in the first place, and that's kind of the wonderful thing about writing, is that it has the chance to morph and grow and become something that it never was intended to be, but sometimes that's the best thing for it. Obviously, there's a lot more to story structure and writing a compelling piece, but it all starts with your characters. You can have the most expensive animations, the most crazy explosions, and the most beautiful visuals, but if you have flat, uninteresting characters, none of the rest of it will matter. But if you can create someone who has a specific point of view, with a character arc, someone that we want to see win, then you're on your way to creating something great. Better yet, you're on your way to creating something people will watch. Hi, thanks for joining us here on Boomshot. If you like that, make sure you hit the like button below and the subscribe button to make sure you don't miss an episode. Here on this channel, you can find Boomshot, as well as a lot of our short films and other projects that we're working on, so stay tuned.